Welcome, everybody, to the Yo Kid Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Gargano. This is the podcast that surrounds everything youth sports. So I've covered pro and college sports, the highest level, and I have fallen in love with youth sports. I'm a big believer in sports for children. I just think it's such a great outlet and keeps them out of trouble, they learn so many great life lessons. So as we go forward with the podcast, we're going to be talking to a lot of different people in the world of youth sports. We'll talk to some professional athletes who have children of themselves. We'll talk about the journey of the athlete. We'll highlight some of the terrific youth sports athletes across the Delaware Valley and beyond. But really, we really wanted to try to give some advice to the parents. Listen, if you got a good story, good idea, please, like I said, hit me up and we'll get to Yo Kids Sports Podcast. Hey guys, here at Yo Kids Sports for Brendan Petrilli and myself, Anthony Gargano, I just want to thank you for hanging on our channel. We love it, all right? We love doing this content. Just do us a solid and hit the subscribe button, because the more people that we can reach, that we can amplify this thing, the better guests, the more content that we can produce. So do us a solid, hit the subscribe, tell your friends, your families, your coaches, get everybody subscribed, because chances are here at Yo Kid Sports, we're going to be talking about your kid or your coach. It's a lot of fun. Hang with us. Welcome to another episode of Yo Kid Sports. I got a great one. All right. A guy who is an incredible dad, an incredible football coach. And oh, by the way, he has 3 Super Bowl rings with Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. I don't know where you're going to get that. And his dad, by the way, is a Hall of Famer. All right. Tell me that's not a resume. My dear friend, Dan Klecko, joins us. Danny.
Hey, buddy. I'm so happy to be on. Hey, look, I got blessed. I got good kids. I had a dad that raised me right, and I got lucky to play in the NFL, man. So, God's looking out for me.
I don't think there's anything about luck involved. Knowing the basis of football, and let's get right into it, because the basis of football is hard work. And as long as I've known you, Temple, right, NFL, you've always been a guy that just is a worker.
Right. And look, football is the ultimate. Hey, if you give effort, like, you're playing baseball, you got to be taking 1,000 cuts a week. You're shooting basketballs if you're playing basketball, right? Soccer, you got to have a ball in your foot. Football is the ultimate. Hey, look, if you give effort, right, and you give everything you got and you work hard in the off season, it's that one you can catch up to, pretty much quicker than any other sport. But it is, man. It's no matter what these kids think, how good they are in Little South Jersey or Philadelphia, there's a million kids all over the United States putting in just as much work and working just as hard. I mean, it is it's the root of the sport for sure.
I want to get into your journey compared to your dad's journey, compared to Nate's journey. So for the audience, Danny has a son, Nate. First of all, he's got an army of children who are beautiful kids, but he coaches his son, Nate, who is a terrific player, freshman at Paul VI High School in South Jersey. And you coach, you help, you're on that staff, and you've kind of seen it all from dad to you to now Nate. Let's talk about just the differences first.
Sure. I mean, for me, it was, my dad was never involved. I mean, he always taught me, right? I mean, he'd have hand signals for me in the stands, and I'd look up at him. But for whatever reason, I won't get into it. I'm not sure, but my coaching staff in high school never wanted him around. I don't know if they felt threatened or whatever it was. After my sophomore year, my head coach left and he went somewhere else. And my junior and senior year, the head coach just didn't want him around. And I'm not sure why they would take it out on me. So look, he'd coach me, he'd teach me things, but he was never involved. With Nate, at Paul VI there, I'm involved, right? Even his last 2 years at Clearview, I wanted him to have a good base of knowledge and understanding of the game while I was around before I threw him into the fire. Because again, it is a sport you can get hurt easily, and it's a sport you can get bad habits in real quick, right? From look, our coach, I'm blessed. Our coach at Paul VI is a great staff. I don't think they need me there. I love being there, and I love that they have me. But a lot of these coaches don't know what they're coaching. They don't know how to teach the fundamentals. They're more worried about winning, right? And getting a jacket or getting a ring, at 7th and 8th grade, where it really doesn't mean anything, right? It doesn't. Teaching them how to be a good sportsman, like I said, the good fundamentals, the hustle, the working hard. Those are the things that will carry you through high school. And if you're blessed enough to play in college, or maybe even after that, it all sets up in 7th and 8th grade with the and earlier, and even in high school with the good habits, with the learning how to train, with the mentality of football, right? That's where it all stems from. And so I wanted to be there for Nate to teach him those fundamentals, and just luckily he's been able to succeed and have a little bit of success so far.
And don't forget, our Yo Kids Sports podcast is presented by Primo Hoagies. Listen, know what I've always said for years and years and years. It's not just a hoagie, it's a Primo. And this fall, whether you're tailgating, football, soccer, it's youth, you name it, make sure you got your Primo Hoagie party tray. Nothing like it for the big game. And speaking of football and the big game, this fall we're giving away a trip to Vegas to see the very big game to one very lucky, very deserving coach. So if you know a youth coach that you think deserves recognition for their outstanding dedication and passion, make your nominations today. PrimoHoagies.com. You can go directly mvc.primohoagies.com. Our most valuable coach promotion here at Primos. I love it. We got to shine some love, give some love to these youth coaches that spend their time, many of whom just getting an earful and no compensation. So they're the best. Nominate your favorite coach. Again, it's the Primo Hoagies Most Valuable Coach Contest. I love it. I think it's great. And who knows, maybe they'll get to see the birds at the big game. Wouldn't that be something?
It's interesting. You brought up something that I so spot on. We get so caught up in wins and losses.
Yeah.
And look, we all want to win. We're competitive people.
Right.
But, whether they're sophomores at 10 and 11 years old, or whether they're in 7th and 8th grade, high school is a little different. But
right, I agree. Yeah.
When you're going up through the ranks, wins and losses. Are you kidding me? Teach the game, coach. Right.
Right. You're absolutely right. Look, ultimately, you want to teach them the win as well, right? You got, hey, those tough moments. How do you gut it out? How do you stand up? How do you get your back up and get tough? You have to teach that as well. But at the end of the day, look, no one's going to remember that Clearview football lost to Glassboro 2 years ago in 7th grade football. No one's going to remember that, right? Right. But I'm going to remember how, me as a coach, I'm going to remember how you reacted when you were down 40-0. I'm going to remember how, what your attitude was, what your body language was. Did you pick your teammates up, or did you say, oh man, you guys suck and we can't win? How did you treat those moments? Because they're going to happen again. Trust me. I've looked up at the scoreboard. We played Virginia Tech my freshman year, and it was Michael Vick's coming out game, and it's 62-7, right? Don't look at the scoreboard, right? Don't look at the scoreboard. Beat the man in front of you, win your little individual battles, and the rest will take care of itself.
What is your, when we talk about these coaches, because I saw it earlier this year where a team was winning 30-0, and it was right before halftime. And there's a rule that right before, as soon as it's 30, 28 points or whatever it is.
When you're up by 28, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, they scored to make it 27-0.
Yeah.
They missed the extra point on purpose. So once you get to 28-0, you can't throw, right? So these guys missed the extra point on purpose so they can then throw the football. That's ignorant, what are we doing?
Right. What are you teaching? What are you coaching? Right. Hey, if you're that good, right? Well, here, now we're going to work on our run game, right? If that's how you want to treat it, you want to treat it as, hey, now we're going to teach our kids some things, teach them how to run the ball, right? That's just ignorant. When coaches do things like that, when I see stuff like that, taking timeouts to run up the score, having vendettas against the other coach or the other parents, so you're going to take it out on the kids, like, man, they're 10 through 12 years old, 13 years old. What the hell are you doing to them, right? Like, you're demoralizing them. You're teaching them to hate the game we all love, the game we grew up
Right.
watching, and that's just, to me, those coaches should be fined or suspended when they do stuff like that.
And that's my biggest beef is you're teaching, you're going to have kids not like it for
Right.
what? Like, what? Like, there's no in this sport, and you could talk to it better than anybody. The disparity sometimes, like if you got a big line, right, or if you got some athletes, you're just going to overpower these teams.
Right. Hey, look, at that age, one kid can make a difference, right? One kid can absolutely take over a game. You know, it's now again, when you get in high school, it's different. And
Right.
look, I've seen kids take over games in high school too. But you know, seventh, eighth grade, sixth, seventh, and eighth grade, you got one real stud. Just give him some room, and he's gone. Right. Like when you get to those points in that game, take those kids out, let the other kids play. Right. But these coaches, I mean, the way they recruit and the way they try to get their teams together. It's just it's sad, right? Because it's not football and it's not what it's going to be when those kids get older and those kids are just used to dominating. Now they're in a disadvantage.
I know, it's amazing. It's amazing. I'm getting attacked by my dog right now. So we just got a puppy.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So the puppy busted into the office.
That's what makes a great podcast, though. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Don't worry, mine will bark. Mine's sitting right there. It'll bark in 5 minutes or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. I guess what really bothers me sometimes is, I don't know why football. It seems to be more egregious in football than any other sport, and I don't know what that is. I mean, we ran into a situation last week where it was 16-6. The other team's got the ball, 2 minutes to go. In less than, it was like a minute and a half.
Yeah.
Just kneel on the ball, like run the ball. You don't have to kneel down.
Run a couple dives, right? Let's get out of here, right? Yeah.
They were calling timeout and throwing down the field, like, right. and then what happens is there's jawing back and forth from the sidelines, and then people started to argue, and they started to meet it midfield, and that's where bad stuff can happen.
Right.
And the worst thing about what we're doing here is we want to make sure that the adults remain adults and don't stuff like that gets out of control quickly.
Right. Look, football is and I'll never compare football to war or gladiators that used to kill each other in an arena. But in today's world, football is the closest thing to a gladiator sport, right? It is. It's you go out there and you try to literally fist fight the other guy for 60 minutes or whatever it is, 48 minutes when they're little, and I think we lose sight of those are our babies out there, right? Those are our look, my Thomas, my littlest one, he goes out there, he plays soccer, lacrosse, and it's crazy. Some of the stuff you hear the parents say, don't take that, hit him in the face, and you're like, man, my man's going to get home and he's going to watch SpongeBob. Like, like we lose sight of the fact that they're babies and we project our anger and we project our preconceived notions of what they should be doing out onto the field. And that's when you see these parents yelling and screaming. Hey, look, I get it. It's an emotional sport. It's, any sport is emotional, but especially football, because it is physical. It is, like I said, it's a fist fight for however long. So I get it, right? There are times you're going to let the emotions get the best of you, but you got to remember at the end of the day, hey, look, those are just kids out there, man. None of this is going to mean anything. If they're blessed enough to play in college, that's a huge, just a huge win, right? These kids aren't going to the NFL, right? And if they do, awesome, right? And that was good for them. But remember that, like, look, I've gotten caught up, right? I've done dumb stuff out on the sideline. Of course I have, right? Like, you almost, get pulled back into the NFL or college or when I was in high school and you'll chirp and say something stupid and you're like, shut up. Like, why did I do that, right? But at the end of the game, I'm going to walk up to the other coach, the other fan, and say, "Great job! You had a great team. Good luck. Great, stay healthy." That's what it needs to be at the end of the game.
Yeah. What's in the thirst of winning? The reclassification has come in, and I hear
Oh,
from a lot of parents,
oh, yeah.
right? Like, so if you got, for people who don't know what that is, sometimes you'll redo eighth grade, you'll redo a grade. So you could be up to 15 years old and play seventh and eighth grade football.
Right.
And like those kids are at 15 are almost like men.
Well, like you said, the disparity, right? From like, I just look at the way my kids have grown in the last 2 years, right? So when they were 13, now Nate's 15 and Christian's is 13. You just look at the way they've grown in the last 2 years. I mean, if I put Nate on an eighth grade field now, it would be a joke, right? Like that would just be, it wouldn't be fair. And that's what these guys are doing now. What they'll tell you is, hey, I just want these kids to have an advantage when they go to high school. They're ready to play more. Look, when I was in high school and I was a freshman, right? Like I wanted to start varsity. I didn't want to go redo eighth grade, right? So to me, that's like we've made it okay to go. I don't want to say pick on things, but like be the bully, right? Like you've made that okay to look. If I'm bad enough, I promise you, I'm going to start on varsity, and it's what I did, right? Like I looked at it and went, that kid's not better than me. I can play. I'll play over him in a week. Watch, I'll be above him. I did the same thing when I went to Temple. I looked around and I went, I'll be starting in a week, right? These kids, again, they're chasing the championships. They got these coaches in their ears that are telling them, stay back one more year. And when you get to high school, you watch, you'll dominate. You'll have Penn State and Michigan and Alabama calling you, right? These coaches are the problem. It's not the kids, and it's the parents that they listen to the coaches, right? And they're going to other towns to play. That's what bothers me too, right? When I was in high school, you played for your town. That's what you did, and you tried to create something. They create something, then all of a sudden it's gone, and they'll have to go to different high schools. And it's just, to me, again, it's a real problem in the game. And I think, I don't know who runs at USA Football or whatever, but they should absolutely step in and say, hey, look, if you repeat eighth grade, you cannot play football. I
Yeah.
absolutely think that, unless it was for a legitimate academic or physical reason. If you just stayed back just to play football or baseball or basketball or soccer, you should be punished for that.
I mean, almost could treat it like a situation in college where it's eligibility, because see
Right.
what they're doing is they're manipulating at that age with boys. As you know, it's puberty, right?
Well,
So
100%. Yep.
like kids are going to mature at certain levels. We're going to have growth spurts at different times, right? So once you hit the 15, you're on your way,
Yes.
and you're
Yeah.
kind of on the other side of puberty, arcing toward adulthood.
Right.
You got kids, they're going up against kids who don't have a hair on their face.
Right. And there is a real possibility and probability that someone will get hurt out there. Right. And that's part of it. And all for what? So you could say, oh, we won the South Jersey Football League, or we won the Philadelphia Public League. Like, come on, what are we doing here? Right. Like, again, it goes back to what we talked about in the beginning. Are we teaching the right things to these kids as they come up, right? And as they go to high school, are they prepared to play there? And no, they're not. I see the reclass kids. They're not, right? They think they should walk right in. They could play like they're supposed to play in little guys, and they get beat, right? Or they're out of position, right? Because they can't just dominate, and they didn't learn the fundamentals. Coach just told them, go make a play, right? To me, that's another problem with the reclassing.
Let's talk about the goodness of football. Let's talk about your own, you as a parent, right? Having, your father, Joe Klecko, Hall of Famer, you, like what we talked about and what you've done. So when Nate says he wants to play football,
Yeah.
what was your reaction?
There was hesitation, right? I didn't play till I got to high school. My older brother didn't play till he got to high school. My little brother didn't play till he got to eighth grade. I don't know what made my dad break down, but he did. I guess he got talked into it. But when he came to me, I said, all right. And I kind of reached out, talked to Clearview, saw what it was about, or saw our local program. And I said, hey, can I be involved? Can I coach? And obviously the head coach, welcomed me with open arms, and it was a lot of fun. But of course, there's some hesitation. He's coming from soccer too. Now I saw him play lacrosse as well. So I knew he was ready for the physicality of it. I just saw the way he played other sports. I knew he was ready for it, but still, there's still that. I don't want you to hate football before it gets good, because in high school is where it really gets good, right? That's where you're with your buddies. There's the band, there's the cheerleaders. It's never like that again, right? When you go to college and pro, it's high school is literally the best time that you can have. And you don't want to hate it before you get there, right? And with bad coaching or like we were talking about before, if you just have your town team just doesn't have the horsepower, and you can't go beat these big time programs, and all of a sudden it's 40-0, 20-0, and you don't even score a point. You're like, well, this sport sucks. I'm going back to soccer. I'm going back to lacrosse.
Right.
I don't want to play this. Right. You have to keep that in mind when you let these kids play. I mean, I can remember his first play. We were playing against one of the tougher teams down here in South Jersey. And his first play, the running back came up and knocked him on his butt. I mean, and he looked at me and I said, get up and run, go chase the play. I said, like, this is it, man. Like, there's no hiding on a football field. So, when you're going to let your young kids play, besides the whole head issue, that was another big factor for me. But when you're going to let them play at a young age, you have to take that into account. How are they going to react when they do get hit in the mouth from a kid that's been playing his whole life and is, being told by the other parents, yo, kill him, go kill him, and you're like, how's he going to react? I knew Nate would react just fine. I mean, it took him one time to look at me and go, wait, what just happened? But, I knew he would get up, chase the play. And sure enough, next play, he hit the guy in the backfield and he made a play. So I knew it was going to be okay. But, you really have to take that into account when just your kids, their mannerisms, their how they're, you've seen them play other sports if you're going to throw them into football. I suggest that you do not make football their first sport ever. But you'll know how they're going to react and is it the right time? And the other thing is, the head stuff, right? It's a big deal to me. I've seen friends that have CTE. I've been around guys that are now not here. So it is a big deal, right? And they say 12 years old is when your brain is fully developed and then you can start playing. So I took that into account too. I think Nate was turning 13 the first year I let him play. So I let that go as well.
Yeah, that's such. I mean, everything we talk about the head, proper tackling. Like I watched you coach kids, and you were a lot about technique and about your own self-preservation, which is like you can't be scared on a football field because that's when you get hurt.
Yeah.
You got to be taught the right way to tackle. You got to be to engage contact the right way to protect yourself.
Right, and it's again, like you said, being afraid on the football field, right? Like you cannot do it, right? If I see that, I'm taking the kid off the field. If I see that you did get dinged, I'm taking your helmet and I'm going to make you go get cleared, right? Like there's too many coaches that are still old school and they're like, what's wrong with you? I dinged my head. Oh, get back out there. Come on, you're all right. How many fingers am I holding up? Well, look, we've learned that's not the right way, okay? And sure enough, I'll be 43 this year. It's something I definitely think about, right? My dad had a friend that just passed away, Jimmy Sweeney, that was the center for the Jets forever, and he got to play for the Steelers, and he just actually passed away of a heart attack. God bless him. But they looked at his brain, and sure enough, it's all CT'd up, and it's they said it was one of the worst they've ever seen, and it's scary, right? So in the back of my mind, when these things happen, I'm like, yo, it ain't worth it at 12 years old. It ain't worth it at 20 years old. It's not.
Right.
It's really not. But, when I see that, you take their helmets right away. That's why at the D line or the O line, I teach, use your hands, lock out, right? You're going to get those hits. Look, if you play football, it's inevitable. It is a contact sport. You're going to get hurt, right? You're going to rip your fingers out. You're going to sprain your ankle. It's going to happen. Whether you like it or not, you got to just accept that. But anything with the head, neck, you don't play with that, man. You take them off the field. You say, go get cleared. I don't care who they are. I don't care if they're your best player, your worst player. You take them off the field and you protect those little brains because it's not about 7th and 8th grade football. It's about life.
Do you look at how much does demeanor matter of a kid? Like, you get these kids that are just innately aggressive that are built for the sport. But you have other kids who are a little quiet, who aren't afraid or anything like that, but they don't have that killer instinct, but they can still be good. Like, how do you differentiate and how does that fit in to the mentality of the sport?
I think you know it right away, right? I think it's very rare as you move on from high school and especially the NFL. I think the guys that are quiet and don't really, for lack of a better term, they're not in love with the sport, right? They're not that killer. They're not dying to get out there, but they're very good. And this is what I do. I think that's very, very rare. The more you move on, I think you get to college, you get to the NFL. There's more and more killers up there. There's more and more, like you said, that killer instinct. But in high school, look, it's kind of everything we've talked about, right? A lot of these kids are just out there because they do love the sport and they want to have fun with their buddies, right? I think it is up to the coach to put them in the right positions, right? If you know you got a dog in front of you, protect them, move them, do something with them, but don't let them just sit there and get hit with uppercuts all game. Don't let them do that. But you can absolutely see that in the kids, and you could see that, hey, maybe I can get it out of them, that dog. They just got to be taught the right way and make a couple plays. But it's definitely a big factor in what makes a good football player for sure.
So I watch you coach kids, and I just loved your demeanor. Like your demeanor was, you knucklehead, like playful, serious,
Yeah.
and you had discipline, and if kids were acting up or if they weren't, picking up something, you had teacher in you, but you also had that, I want to make it fun for you. Was there a certain way that you approached it, and what is the key to really reaching kids and with the game of football?
I try to keep in the back of my mind that they are, right now I'm coaching 14 through 17-year-olds or 16-year-olds or whatever it is, and not everyone's going to get it, right? Like that's another thing. Like there's just some kids, like I said, that are just out there because they want to be with their buddies. They want to have fun. And again, you teach them, right? I slow practice down, you teach them. But they're not going to get it. And that's okay, right? I don't need to get in their face and get in their grill and say, hey, dude, I can't believe this. You suck, right? Just, hey, we'll get it. We'll keep working on it. But like you said, there is that time where you got to command the respect, right? You got to tell them, look, they're 13 through 17. Their hormones are going like crazy. They're worried about the girls. They're worried about getting home doing their homework. They're worried about the pep rally on Friday, right? Look, that's human nature, right? Like, it was funny. Like, you're coming to the end of the season. It's getting dark out. You're losing kids right now, right? Like, even the really good ones are like, man, the season's long. So our coach the other day was like, oh, worst practice we had. This sucks. I'm like, what are you going to do, right? Like, they're kids, right? That's the biggest thing. Like, they're more worried about getting home, getting on TikTok sometimes. That's okay, right? As long as they stay with me in that moment. That's what I always say to them, guys. Give me 2 hours and we're out. Right? Just give me 2 hours. Just listen. Let's work on our couple of fundamentals, get through the team stuff, see what the other team runs, and then we'll get out of here. Just give me those 2 hours. And again, there's times where you have to yell at them and say, yo, shut up, listen, pay attention. Then there's times you got to walk over and put your arm around them, have the jokes with them, hug them, tell them you love them, tell them, because look, I don't know if it's the same way for all the coaches, but I do. I love the kids I coach, man. I do. I spend just as much time with them as I do with my family, right? I don't even see Nate during practice. I'm with all the other ones. And, for lack of a better term, you love these kids, right? You do. You're like, you want to see them. It's more important for me to see them go out there and succeed. And I love to see one of them get a sack or one of them get an interception more than when I played, right? Because, when you're in it, you're putting in the work. You don't really, you just want to get your stats up or your wins up, right? But when you're coaching them and you see what they're going through and all the things they're dealing with, or maybe they had a tough week of practice and they get a pick or they get a sack or they have a long run and you're like, yes, we did. Listen, it's awesome. You just, and you see the smile on their faces and their parents are proud as hell up in the stands. That means more to you than anything I ever did. And, it's especially true for my own son, but for all the kids, you definitely, you love to see them succeed out on the field.
It's the truth. Like, it's one of the gifts of doing it. Like when Thomas Klecko got a base hit, I was thrilled.
Yeah, you're the same exact way, right? Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Hey, get in their butts a little bit, tell them what they got to do, and then, oh my God, you did it! Yeah, right. Yeah,
it's so rewarding
yeah.
when you see that, especially when you're talking a little like pre-high school, right? When you're at those ages of like 8, 9, 10, 11, and like their successes, their happiness and joy is palpable, Danny.
Right.
Like it's, you see it and you feel like, oh my God, thank you. Because you root for them.
Right. And it's the little wins at that age, right?
Yeah.
Because they're gonna have bad games where they don't get a hit, they don't score a goal, they get pancake blocked. They're gonna have practices, they're gonna have games that don't go right. But when they do, or when they do have the bad games, build them back up. Hey, it's okay. We'll get it this week. And it's little things, just build them up every little time. Because again, you're not preparing them for eighth grade football. You're preparing them for bigger football, bigger sports, and life, right? Because look, life is cold, right? We all know that. Life is mean. It's going to punch you in the mouth. There's no greater teacher than sports, right? Or, you're going to get hit in the mouth. How do I respond, right? There really is.
Welcome to Primo. How can we help you today?
One old-fashioned meatball, and make it quick, because I got practice.
You got it. Coach?
Congratulations, Coach!
You've been nominated by your team to win 2 tickets to the big game!
Wait, nominated? So I didn't win?
Smile.
Not yet, Coach.
Most valuable
Not
coach.
yet.
Smile,
Not
coach.
yet.
Smile.
Come on, smile.
Smile
Coach.
for the cameras,
Smile.
coach.
You got to be kidding me.
Smile, coach.
So what's the best blueprint? Let's look at it. Say, let's take a kid like Nate, right? And divorce yourself from being dad for a second. And you got a kid who's got talent. What's the path? Is it camps, trainers, lifting, like all these things to kind of help a kid get better? Like what's the blueprint here?
Sure. And I, it's, and I think a lot of that's so new from when I played, right? The personal trainers, the Parisi schools, the speed schools that the kids go to, the college football camps that they try to start getting. It's all so new from when I was in high school. Hey, you played and you got a letter every once in a while, and then the college coach would come see you. Oh, that's really cool. But now that there is so much emphasis on the specialization of the sport, right? There is, like I said, the speed trainers, the weight trainers, and I think every kid's going to be different, right? I think every kid's going to react different. Maybe every kid doesn't need as much as the next kid, but look, we go back to the first thing we said on this. It's hard work, right? So definitely, you want to get in the weight room, right? You got to start lifting 7th, 8th grade. You got to start running and getting in shape for camp. You got to take care of your body. A lot of these kids, I think a lot of them don't realize how important getting sleep is, eating a little bit right, hydrating, like just those little things. If you can teach them and drive it into them, it just becomes second nature for them as well, right? So I think there's a big blueprint out there, right? I think it's there's a lot of little schematics to follow to how to become a great football player, and then or a great athlete, but I think the number one thing is loving and honing your craft, right? If you don't really love it, you're not going to work that hard at it, and you're never going to become the cream of the crop, the ESPN 500. Not that that's not arbitrary, but still, like those are the things those are the things I beat into Nate personally, is just, hey, look, you gotta love it. You have to fall in love with the sport if you want to be great. Now, if you just want to play high school football, there's no reason to beat the hell out of kids and say, you got to do this, you got to do that, right? Just other than just, hey, I want to see you start and play. But like, if they really want to be a great player, they got to watch college. They got to watch the NFL. They got to watch film when we bring it in from the other team, right? They got to be following those little steps. And then you realize, okay, I got a kid that really wants it here. Now I really work with them.
Is there specialty camps that you believe in? Is at what age or
look? There's got to be, right? I think for me personally, I was very, very fortunate to have a Hall of Fame player that lived with me and played my same position. So it was always easy for me to be like, hey man, I'm stuck on this. How do I, and he'd be like, oh, we'll work on your get off. We'll work on your hands. We'll work on, not rushing down the middle of a man. It was very easy for me. But for a lot of these kids, they don't have access to that. Even their high school coaches or little league coaches, God, they're giving it their all. And these coaches are busting their ass and they love these kids. I promise you they do. They maybe don't have the answers to the test, right? So if Trent Cole's putting on a camp down here at Rowan, and Brandon Graham's going to be there, and a couple of college coaches. Yeah, absolutely. If they can't go there and pick up some tips and tricks on how to get better, whether it's your set, whether it's a receiver, how to get off the ball, how to get off press coverage, right? There's always going to be something there for you to learn that somebody has been there and done that. I absolutely think those camps, as long as run the right way and for the right reasons, I absolutely think they could be good for kids.
How about there's a new thing now with spring football, and a lot of people are, believing in this new spring. It's almost developmental. It's like fall baseball, right? Like,
right.
So what is that good? Is that too much?
I'm completely against it. I could not be more against spring football. Look, spring workouts, maybe put a helmet on, go out and work on the bags, work on routes, work on drops if you're linebackers or D-backs. Absolutely, right? But to put more hits on your body, just to go out there and say, hey, I played another 8 games and I'm completely against it. I think the less hits, the more hits you can take off your head and the more hits you could take off your body, the better you'll be later on in life. I don't think, I think a lot of people can't see the forest through the trees. They don't realize that, hey, on the other side of this, I'm going to be beat up from playing another 8 football games. Look, besides maybe hockey, there's no more brutal sport in the world than football. It's just brutal. Like people ask, what did it feel like after a game? I tell people, run full speed and just jump down your steps 20 times. That's how you feel after a game. You feel like you're in a car wreck, right? Like the average player is in 3 or 4 car wrecks during a game. Do you really want to put more and more of that on your body every week? I get people's reasoning behind it. I don't agree with it or understand it. I'm personally very against it. Like I said, I think workouts, speed training, getting out there with the team and maybe running through plays, I think that's awesome. But going out there and playing 7, 8 more football games, I'm completely against it.
Well, and you could almost see it like and you could actually take a lesson from the NFL, because look at training camp and what training when it came to hitting, right? What training camp was when you're dad to what training camp was for you, and then what training camp is today, where it's not even tackling to the ground.
Right. Well, I always tell the story when I got to New England my rookie year. Now, camp wasn't easy. 2 days. I mean, camp is 6 weeks in the NFL, right? It's 2 weeks. Then you got a preseason. Then you got 4 preseason games. Then the season starts. So, like, as you're a college kid coming in, you're like, oh my God, we played 6, or we've been through 6 weeks, and wait, we're just starting. I have, my rookie year, we have 20 more games. You're like, oh, that's going to be a long season. But my rookie year, we were a very, very veteran team. Willie McGinnis, Ty Law, Teddy Bruschi, Mike Vrabel. Just these stud veterans. We took the pads off. We did not wear pads week 1 on, unless Bill got mad at us or something. But for the most part, we were in the soft shells, helmets, getting our fits, knew where we had to be, staying in shape, running around. We won 21 straight games and 2 Super Bowls in those 2 years, right? With that team. Look, once you get the fundamentals down of the season, once you kind of get your body used to hitting, you do not need to beat the hell out of your body anymore. You just don't. It's funny. We went through 2 weeks this year, right in September here. It was real hot 1 week, so we could only wear helmets. It was like 100 degrees, so we could only wear helmets. And then the next week, for some reason, we could only get on the field once. Oh no, we had a Jewish holiday, so we had to play on a Thursday. So we didn't really hit 2 of our best games of the season, 2 big wins that we needed. You do not need to hit, right? You got to keep focused. You got to keep your lungs up, keep in shape. But once you get through training camp and you've gotten your body used to the impacts, you're fine. Just get through the season. That's what you have to do. So Andy did the same thing. Andy, in Philadelphia, he'd put you through a brutal training camp. It was the hardest training camp I've ever been through. But once you got out of camp, man, he took care of you. And, you saw Andy's teams, they maybe started slow because they were so beat up from camp. But at the end of the season, they were flying because Andy knew how to take care of his guys, take the pads off. You don't need to hit that much when you get into season.
What's it like as dad? Let's go to you as dad. And, obviously you and Nate spent a ton of time together, you're coaching.
Right.
The other boys are trying to spend as much time. The relationship with sports, especially knowing what you achieved in your own career, how do you then be dad and not, putting in pressure and all that stuff? How do you navigate that?
You know what? It's funny. I always ask my dad that too. I remember my little brother who also played. He got a scholarship to Rutgers. He played at Red Bank Catholic up in Central Jersey, and he called me one day or he texted me and he said, every time I'm in the newspaper, they mention Dad and you. I said, just get over it. I said, who cares? Like it's going to be there. Accept it. But for me personally, with my boys, I got 3 boys that Nate just happens to play the sport I played. Christian plays soccer, and Thomas plays soccer and lacrosse. I won't miss anything for the other 2. Now, I'm not at every practice like I am for Nate, but their games, wherever they're at, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be supporting them. Whether they have a good game, bad game. Now I'll tell them, hey, look, you got to hustle more. You got to do this or that. But I tell them I love them. I tell them, let's go get a pizza after the game. I don't put that pressure on them. Right now, I'll bust their chops every once in a while too. My middle one, especially Christian, he is the biggest smart ass in the world. I'll be like, oh, you played in the NFL, or I'll say something like that just to bust his chops. But look, I put no expectations on them whatsoever. I'm shocked Nate's playing varsity as a freshman. I'm so happy for him, but I never thought that. So I don't walk into a game saying you got to have 6 sacks. I used to have 6 sacks against teams like this. I don't say things like that. I'm just saying I give them the blueprint of how to play sports, how to take, and I let it go from there. I try to keep them away from that even.
You also, are you cognizant of, especially since you coach him too, you're a part of the coaching staff.
Yeah.
Are you cognizant not to make it all football? Like
100%. Right. Like,
right?
I want to come home and watch Guardians of the Galaxy. Like,
Right.
of course, like now at school, they do like watching footballs on Sundays and also, but I'm not like, get over here and watch this game. It's more just, hey, in the summers, look, when it's time to get off, we go down to the beach, we go to the boardwalk. I don't want them to get burnt out of the game or be like, this is way too much. The more you can get your mind off of it, just the better. But yeah, I try not to drill it down their throats all the time. What's
your teaching moments like? When do you wait until after a certain amount of time after a game? How do you do it? Your own demeanor, like teaching moments are so important.
Yeah. I think it's probably something I could get better at now with my big guy who plays football. Obviously, I am the coach, right? I tell him when we're in between those white lines, I'm coach. Whatever I say, don't take personal. I got to be just like I am with everyone else. I got to be like with you. But I try to wait as much as I can. But like for just say my other 2, they're playing soccer, and I saw something like, hey, if you would have hustled to this ball, you would have had a goal or something like that. I'll wait till we get in the car. I might say something in the game like, oh, come on, get to that, something like that. But I will say I have gotten better at it. But, I usually wait till we get to the car and I'll be like, hey, buddy, maybe got to hustle a little bit more, just something like that. But again, it's not like we get home and I put a soccer ball in their foot and say, hey, go shoot the ball 25 times. That's what you got to go do to get better. Say my little piece and then see if they take it to the next game. Again, my little guy's 10. So you really don't beat him up with it. Now my middle guy's 13 and he's playing travel soccer. I try to put a little bit more emphasis on it because he's serious about it and he wants to play in high school. So I think it's definitely important to touch on the teaching moments, but maybe not hammer them with them.
It's funny. I had one happen Sunday morning. My little one, he had a long weekend. He had 2 football games, 2 baseball games on Saturday. And then we had a baseball tournament early in the morning. So he didn't wake up at like 6 o'clock.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I felt bad for him. Like he was so tired. He was beat up. And he's like, Daddy, I want to miss today. I just want to sleep. And, as a parent, you start to think, oh, the poor kid's been through it. Let him sleep, right?
Right.
And it's like, no, Daddy, you got to get up. You got to come. You made a commitment to the team. He wound up having a great game. Right. And it was like this lesson of, show up. As long as you show up in life, that's a huge part of it. Like, show up and be into it.
I think you said the biggest thing there. Look, you made a commitment, right? Right? What if, this kid didn't show up and this kid didn't show up and now all of a sudden we don't have a team, right? Look, you made a commitment to that team. We'll revisit it after the season. If you really hate it and you don't want to play anymore, that's okay. But right now, you said at the beginning of the season, I'm part of this team. We're going to move on and we're going to keep going. You have to be there. You have to show up, like you said.
What advice would you have for youth? Let's look at football coaches. What advice would you give them? Like, certain basic tenets.
I think the biggest one I already said, remember their kids. Remember that.
Yeah.
Remember that these are someone's babies, right? Right. Like you might look at them some way, but you don't know what they're going through at home. You don't know what's going on. If you see them struggling, take them aside and say something to them. But I think that's the biggest thing. Remember that these are kids. They're not your little pawns to win your championship. That would be my biggest advice, right? And then the other one is teach. Don't just yell. Hey, you can yell for sure. But when you yell, follow it up with, hey, you did this wrong. Try this. Not just, oh, you idiot, you lost the edge, at defensive end. And the kid's going, wait, what? I did what you did. I put my hands on the kid. No, I want you to do this and show them, right? I think that's another big thing. And I think at the end of the season or maybe even in season, again, tell them how they're coming along, right? Hey, I texted a kid the other day. I said, your attitude has been great. You show up every day. You work hard. I promise you will be a stud, right? Like, let them know they're doing the right things. And when they're doing the wrong things, again, you are you're a secondary father figure, right? You are, right? So you can say to them, hey, look, you've had a great attitude. I'm so proud of you. You're doing great. Keep pushing. Or you can say, hey, look, you've had a bad attitude. You've been missing practice. You've been moping around when you're not in the game. Like, you can't do that. We can't have you doing that, right? Like, if you really want to be a great player, you really want to play on this team. If I look over and I see that, I can't put you in the game. I can't continue to trust in you. And I think, maybe not at 10, 11 years old, you say things like that, but as they get older, you can say things like that and you're giving them little tidbits for life, right? So, those would kind of be my tenets. Just, hey, remember their kids, coach them when you yell at them, and then tell them they're doing good or what they need to get better at.
You touched on something. I mean, talk about teaching them. Like that was the thing that stood out to me when I watched you coach was nuance. That that's rare for coaches to actually understand nuance for every position, because every position, you haven't played every position on the back in the front seven, right? Like, and fullback. Like, every position. And it's so important, these little nuances.
Yeah, it's funny. I always say, like, the two things I really have a tough time that I can't teach are cornerback. I can give you some little tips, but look, cornerback, what you're seeing, I never saw the game from there, right? I never, besides watching film, and quarterback, good luck. Quarterback's the hardest thing to play in any professional sport, any sport ever is quarterback. So those two things I don't harp on. Like, there's little things I can teach them, but look, the offensive line, defensive line, look, that's where I spent most of my life. I can teach you a lot of stuff. Linebacker, I played that. I played it in the NFL. Fullback, so running back, I could teach you how to pick up blitzes, where to hit the hole, what you're looking at. But again, it's I don't expect every coach to know those little nuances, but if you can learn them, right, and then you can teach them to the kids. The biggest thing I always, especially like with the O-line and everything in the D-line, I said, what are we trying to accomplish here, right? We're trying to run right here. So think about your body position. D-line, what are they trying to do to you? Or linebackers, what are they trying to do to you when they pull the guard here and they send it back this way, right? Think about what they're always trying to do to you. I think in football, that's huge. Like, always think about the flow of the game and what's going on, right? Like, again, when they're younger, that's really tough to get in their brain. But as they get older, they got to start to think football sense. Now, I imagine it's the same in every other sport. Hey, basketball, they got a big guy. What do you think they're going to try and do, right? They got a point guard that can penetrate. What do you think they're going to try and do, right? Like, they're just thinking about, where I got to be positioned. Again, what are they trying to do to me? Like, you always got to be thinking like that. And it's a good time to start teaching them those things.
One of the last things I want to get with you is your story. We have a lot of kids that watch the podcast, and I want them to hear your journey
Yeah.
because your journey is inspirational. You know, Dad was a Hall of Famer and a great, great player. You weren't blessed with like, oh my God, drop dead talent.
Yeah.
You didn't go to Michigan,
Yeah.
right? Like you became a football player. Talk about your journey from a youth football, then
Sure.
into high school, college, and then finally NFL.
Sure. So I mean, for me, my dad wouldn't even let me play till I got to high school. So I was one of those kids that was absolutely in love with the game. Whether it was because I was around when my dad was playing, I was around all the guys. I loved the sport. Like TV was different back then. You only got 2 or 3 games on. I didn't miss a game, right? I didn't miss a game. I'd put my own pads on and go play my own football games in the backyard. Like I loved the sport. So when I got to high school, and I remember the first time I got my jersey and my helmet, and we went out to practice. I can remember it like it was yesterday. Great Valley, out in Malvern, PA. I can remember the first drill I ever went through was an angle tackling drill, and I went against our all-state defensive end. Probably 6'3", 250, and he ran me over. I went backwards, helmet flew off, and I hopped up and went, all right, this is what I signed up for. Like I knew what I loved it, right? I just loved the sport. So we wound up moving to Central Jersey up, and I played freshman football. That's the other thing I want people to realize. I did not walk into the team. I wasn't all state right away, and play varsity, and we got to have. I played freshman football. I had great coaches there that taught me the fundamentals. I played the game there, and then we moved to Marlboro High School up in Central Jersey, in Monmouth County, and I can remember my coach coming to me after a week of practice. I'm on JV, and I can remember he comes up and said, "Hey, I'm gonna put you with the varsity today." I said, "No, I'm not ready for that." Like I tried to talk him out of it, right? Like because I was like, the upperclassmen are going to be mad. These are all new kids. I just moved. I don't know them. Like they're going to hate me. So like I try to talk him out of it. And he's like, "Just shut up. Like you're playing defensive tackle. You're going to play running back for us. Like go do that." So again, I'm an undersized guy. I just look again. I was always in my dad's ear, always working hard, always working out. Loved the game. I would stay after practice, work on little things, and I started for 3 years. I was 3 years all shore conference, all division, everything, and then came to college. And the other thing, my grades weren't that great. I was stupid that way, right? I wish going back on it. I wish I paid more attention in class. I wish I had a passion for that just as much as football. Because what happened was I didn't have a great GPA, and back then your SAT and your GPA had to line up for you to get cleared to go play. So I remember, Penn State, Boston College, Syracuse, they all wanted me to come play linebacker for them, and Syracuse was even going to offer me, and they looked at my grades and like, "You're not going to make it. You're out of here." Right. So they all kind of backed off. And the only one that stayed was Temple and UMass. They were my 2 offers. And thank God I got a 1200 on my SATs and it lined up just perfectly with my GPA. And I was clear to play. So Temple had stayed with me through the whole time. Right. Bobby Wallace, my head coach, I loved him in to death. Every day he'd say, "Hey, look, every time you talk to me, we're holding your scholarship. This one's for you. We want you to come here." And I wanted to play Big East football. So my 4 years in the Big East, Virginia Tech was in the national championship my freshman year. Miami was in it the 2 years they won one. Boston College, West Virginia, Syracuse, they were all ranked in the top 25. So I was like, man, I want to go play those guys and see if I can really do what I think I can do. So I get to Temple my freshman year, again, not starting. Coach is on my ass. I mean, he would, "Oh, I thought you were going to be faster," like one of those guys. I'm like, oh man. So turns out I wasn't like a practice player. I just wasn't. But it came time, my second week, I was like, I'm going to redshirt. I'm not even going to play. My second week, we go to play Kansas State out in Manhattan, and I split half the game with Raheem Brock, who wound up playing in the NFL for 10 years as well. He was a great player. We wound up splitting reps at end. Well, the next week, they came to me and said, "Hey, you're going to start at nose tackle." So I'm 250 in the Big East, where, again, this is the Big East of old, where it was kind of like, I don't want to say it was like the SEC, but like 20 guys would get drafted, 30 guys would get drafted out of the Big East every year. I'm starting at nose tackle at 250 pounds, from there on out, I didn't not start. So I can remember Virginia Tech. We played them at home against the vet, against Michael Vick and them at the vet. And like I said, lost 62-7. But I can remember their O-line coach coming up to me before the game. Now I'm a freshman. And he said, "You're the best D lineman in this league." And
Wow.
I was like, wow. Like, like before the game, you're like, is he just trying to
Sure.
butter me up? Like, and that meant a lot to me. I mean, we're kind of lowly Temple, no one's really thinking of us. And, like I said, I just put my head down and play every week. And he said that to me. And, he came up to me, found me after the game. He said the same thing. That always stuck with me. And then, went on to be Big East Defensive Player of the Year, All-American my senior year. I think it was 2 or 3 time All Big East. So it worked out, right? And so I knew I could play at the next level, get drafted by the New England Patriots. I'm like, I'm a Jet fan my whole life. I'm with my dad. I'm like, I don't want to go. Like, I hate New England. I want to come to Philly or New York where I want to go. And I wound up going to New England. I remember Bill during camp, like every day he would come up to me and put me in a new position. I was like his toy. Right. And, I played middle linebacker, outside linebacker, fullback. I played everything and had a great 3-year or 4-year run there. We won 2 Super Bowls. I learned so much football, Mike Vrabel, Teddy Bruschi, watching Tom Brady every day, just some of the best coaches. And obviously Bill was one of the greatest defensive minds to ever coach this game. I remember watching the Giants from back in the 80s. We're watching their film. We're running their defense. I'm watching Lawrence Taylor. Like, just to learn all that football, was awesome. And then I wound up going to the Colts the next year after I'm done in New England. We win a Super Bowl there. I got to watch I get to watch Peyton Manning play now. I get to learn from that team and Tony Dungy, and a great 2-year run there. And then I got to come home to play in Philly for 2 years. And it was, to me, that was awesome. And it was a different time in my life where, I had kids and I had slowed down, and it was awesome for my wife to have her family close. They're all from Philadelphia. So, I had a great 8-year run in the NFL, and just, the biggest thing that kept me in the NFL, Ant, was I shut my mouth and did what I was told. I don't know if it hurt me or it helped me, but I just played where they wanted me to play. I never made a fuss. I never worried about how many tackles I had or anything like that. I was a grunt, and I did whatever they told me to do. And I think that was a big reason I stayed around the NFL for 8 years.
I think there's an art to that, to embrace that kind of role and put ego. I always think, ego is our worst enemy.
Yeah.
Right? Ego, it divides, it causes bad habits. It really is it's not good for you. And when you could put your ego aside and just work and you loved it, I think that was paramount in your success.
Right. I think, another compliment I got, I remember, was one of the players on the Eagles once. And he said it to somebody else. He didn't even say it to me. I just kind of overheard it. And he goes, I think Klecko could be an impact player at 10 positions out here. And I was like, wow, like that's my teammate saying it, not like a coach or the newspaper guy. Like, to me, like, little things like that always kept me going. Hey, you might not see me, in the papers on Sunday or Monday, but my teammates know what I am and how hard I play and the impact I really have on the game. That always meant a lot to me. Now, would I have loved to have been 5-time All-Pro and made $100 million? Yeah, but that wasn't in the card. So I embraced what I was. I was an undersized D tackle that did whatever the hell they asked me to do.
Yeah, it's amazing because you embody that sport, because I think that sport is still at its core selfless. And this goes to kids watching to play any sport. The selfless nature of sports, team sports, is so vital to success and your own achievement, because coaches love that. Coaches love a kid that's going to sacrifice and be, really care about your team and do whatever that you need, even though you might have to put your own individual glory to the side.
Right. I mean, it's, like, you even teach like our receivers to play now, right? Or our defensive ends that are on the backside, right? Like, run down that play, right? Like, they'll see that, right? Run your routes real hard, even if you're not getting the ball, right? It's like my middle son, Christian, he plays soccer. He's a defender, right? Now, when he was little, he was the guy up top. He went and scored all the goals. He's embraced being a defender, right? He likes it, right? Like, you're not going to score any goals. Now you're going to stop them, and we'll know that. But again, when you get to high school and your name's not in the newspaper because you're not scoring the goals, will you embrace that? And the college coaches will see that, right? They'll see that you're hustling, you're stopping the goals, you're making the slide tackles, like, right? They'll see that, right? I think that's another thing. You can't always be in the limelight. There's only one football to go around. There's only one soccer ball to go around. There's only one basketball to go around, right? Embrace your role on the team and excel at it.
Danny Klecko, dad, coach, former player, does it all. Brother, thank you so much. I love this. I love you as a coach for kids. I think your messaging for kids is important. And so I really appreciate it.
That means more to me than anything, man, is just the fact that, you don't always know if you're doing something right, especially with the little guys and in the high school kids. And to hear you say that means a lot. Thanks, buddy.
You're the best. Hey, guys, here at Yo Kid Sports, for Brendan Petrilli and myself, Anthony Gargano, I just want to thank you for hanging on our channel. We love it, all right? We love doing this content. Just do us a solid and hit the subscribe button, because the more people that we can reach, that we can amplify this thing, the better guests, the more content that we can produce. So do us a solid, hit the subscribe, tell your friends, your families, your coaches, get everybody subscribed, because chances are here at Yo Kid Sports, we're going to be talking about your kid or your coach. It's a lot of fun. Hang with us.